This week on the Irreverent Nerds podcast, we will be discussing the women of Star Trek. We'll have a special focus on Kira Nerys of Star Trek Deep Space Nine and the Season 1 episode Duet, in which she features prominently. Joining us to talk about Kira and the women of Trek will be special guest at Holodeck 4, a longtime friend of the podcast, and calling in to give his 2 cents will be Lars DeSenza, at Photographer on Instagram, also a longtime supporter of the podcast. So, let's do it. Here we go. I'm Richard.
And I'm Will.
And together we're
The Irreverent Nerds. Bum, bum, bum.
Greetings and salutations, Irreverent Nerds. Welcome to Season 3 of the Irreverent Nerds podcast. Thank you to all of you who have stuck with us over the past 10 months, including the 3-month period where we had a hiatus. Thank you so much for continuing to listen to our podcast. So I wanted to take a moment to let you know about some changes that are coming this year. We are going to tighten up our format, make it a little more consistent, and hopefully more exciting and enjoyable for you, our listeners. So, to kind of put it simply, we're going to have more guests, more anime, and more art. Kind of the big 3 there. More guests. So it seemed like we had the best energy and some of the best episodes when we had a guest on. Case in point, our top 2 episodes, that means the episodes that had the most listens across all platforms, were both, number one, they were both about anime. So that is a topic that we are going to be visiting at least once a month for all 12 months of this year. That's our plan. But they also included a guest. So it wasn't just Will and I waxing poetic or unpoetic, as the case may be, about nerdy topics. It included a guest. The first one being a long-term friend of mine, Zach Williams, who came on to talk about Dragon Ball Z. And the second being Dan Johnson, a longtime friend of Mr. William Thomas Boyers, who came on to talk about My Hero Academia, also an anime. So, as I said, top 2 episodes are anime. So you, the listeners, have spoken. That has been your favorite topic of ours. Now, close behind that were Marvel films, specifically Doctor Strange and Thor. I don't know that any more content will be coming out in regards to either of those 2 characters this year, which is unfortunate. But you have spoken that you love Marvel, and Will and I do as well. So obviously, we are going to be covering some Marvel films and or possibly TV shows over the next year. But in general, each month is going to have a 4-episode rotation, or to be more specific, a 4-topic rotation. So within a 4-week period, each month should have, 4 Wednesdays in it. Most months will have that. But in general, regardless, we will follow a 4-week rotation. Week 1 will be a sci-fi topic. Week 2 will be something related to comic books and manga. Now, that may be a comic book creator interview. That may be us talking about a comic books related TV show or film. That may be us talking about an actual comic book series or a manga series or a manga related TV show. But in general, anything closely connected to the world of comic books and manga. That will be our week 2 topics. And week 3 will be anime. So every 3rd Wednesday, we will be covering an anime related topic. And that's a world that I, Richard, would like to get into more. Most of the anime I have watched over the years, I have thoroughly enjoyed, but I would not call myself an expert by any means. It's something I want to explore more myself, and is something that Will thoroughly enjoys. And as a comic book creator himself, he enjoys manga, and of course, the anime, particularly animes based on mangas, but he enjoys all anime in general, I think. So that'll be our week 3, will be anime. And then week 4 will be the movie of the month. So that could be a theatrical release, like if there's one that comes out that month that we are both really interested in, that we feel is appropriately nerdy, we will cover that and give you probably both an instant review as well as a more in-depth review within the episode, hopefully including a guest. And if there isn't a film releasing in theaters that month that we're interested in, then we will cover something that has already been released, most likely something retro from the 80s or 90s, which, as you know, if you've listened to the podcast, Will and I grew up. We were children of the 80s and 90s. So we'll probably come to something retro in the months when there is not an interesting theatrical release, or at least not one that's nerdy, as they may say. So that's our basic 4-week rotation. So week 1, sci-fi. Week 2 will be comic books and manga. Week 3, anime. And week 4, the movie of the month. So that will help us with planning. It will also help us with securing guests. As I mentioned earlier on, something we are aiming for this year is having more guests on. My goal is to have one for every episode that we do. Now, that's not always going to be possible. Even in our first week here, it hasn't quite turned out the way we'd like. We had 2 guests scheduled. One of them at the last minute had to bow out because of a gas leak at her house, and we had to reschedule with her. And then the other guest couldn't come on at the same time, so we had to improvise. And it didn't quite turn out the way we planned, but we still are able to put the episode out. But we're going to do our best to secure a guest. And it will be someone that ideally is either an enthusiast or an expert in the topic of the week. If it's an anime, obviously we want someone who actually cares about that particular anime, someone who has watched it, who loves it, who wants to talk about it, or it could even be someone who hates it and wants to talk about it, as the case may be. But in general, just someone who's enthusiastic about discussing a particular anime series or anime film. Now, for the comic books and manga section, something we are going to try to talk about is the process of creation itself. Obviously, one of our co-hosts, Mr. William Boyer, is a comic book creator, and he has a number of connections with other comic book creators in the area. So we are going to try to have on some local artists, and we will have a comic book related topic for them to discuss with us, but we also want to give them a chance to highlight their own work. So if you are a local comic book creator, and even if you're not local, like if you just want to get in touch with us, the Irreverent Nerds, obviously we live here in the Winston-Salem, High Point, Greensboro area of North Carolina. So if you live nearby and want to connect with us personally, let's go out and grab some coffee and talk about things. And then we could even potentially do an episode in person together. But if you're not local, or if you are not able to do that, we can certainly record via Zoom and various other methods of video recording or audio recording remotely. So let us know. And but yeah, initially it'll be people that we know personally, and over time we may recruit some guests. So speaking of recruitment, there is a service that I've been looking into on which we can advertise ourselves as potential guests for other podcasts, but also recruit and request guests for our podcast. That is a service that costs money. So given that we are aiming to have a guest, and there will be some repeat guests, obviously, like Dan Johnson or my friend Zach Williams, possibly Holodeck 4, who's going to be on our podcast this week, just depending on what the topic of the month is. But we want to do our best to have on at least 1 or 2 new guests every month, particularly those who might be local artists or those who might be involved in the creation of the very shows and or properties that we are discussing. That would obviously be ideal. So if we meet you at a comic book convention or if we reach out to you personally. But some of those guests may cost money. Obviously, the equipment with which we record the podcast, such as our Blue Yetis, pop filters, etc., those have cost some money this past year. Still have not recouped the cost of that. And even though Will and I love talking about these topics, and we would talk about these for free because we are nerds as well, as we have mentioned before, we are trying to monetize the podcast. And I feel weird saying that, but I'm just going to be upfront with you. Like, yeah, we're at least trying to recoup the money that we've put into equipment, and like marketing costs money. Obviously, in the future, securing guests is something that may cost money as well. But it also just lets us know that you really appreciate and value the work that we're doing here. There are other ways you can let us know that as well. Obviously, the first and easiest one is to listen to the podcast. Through Anchor.fm, we can see the analytics. We can see how many listens we get per episode. So it's always encouraging when we see a high number for a specific episode. And that also lets us know the topics that you really enjoy and that you care about. So it's a form of voting in a word. And that lets us know what you would like to hear more of. So that's the easiest way, is just listening. But also, if you listen to us on Apple Podcast, you can subscribe. If you listen to us on Spotify, you can follow whatever word, the specific podcast format you use. It could be follow, could be subscribe, something else. Do that. Follow us, subscribe. And obviously, we appreciate email feedback and audio messages. Go to our profile, anchor.fm, and anchor.fm/irreverent nerd. And right there on the front, you'll see a button that says message. And you can simply just leave us an audio message there. It doesn't have to be long. Just let us know what you thought of a previous episode, if you disagreed with our take, if you loved our take, whatever it might be. Let us know what you think, and we will do our best to include it in the following week's episode. And also, on that profile, you can support us monthly. So I believe as little as 99 cents a month. There's a $4.99 tier and a $9.99 tier. Currently, Lars DeSenza, who is a call-in guest for this week's episode, is a supporter on that. He's also the very first person to give us an audio message, which we'll be including that on this week's episode. So look forward to that. He is the host of the Treknicity podcast, co-host, I should say. And check him out. He is also on there at Old Men Gaming, at Redshirt Geeks. You can find him on YouTube, on Twitch. So yeah, look him up. Him and his co-hosts do a great job with their podcast and their YouTube channel, and they also live stream some gaming as well. So look for them. But anyway, that's just a little bit of the house cleaning. I don't know what the right word is. Housekeeping. Yeah, that I wanted to do to kick off this year. So we're going to do 2 seasons a year. Basically, they'll each be 25 episodes long. So we have weekly episodes. We'll do 25 weeks. Then we'll take a week off. Then we'll do another 25 weeks, take a week off, etc. So season 3, will end sometime towards the end of, if you're a business person, you know what this means, towards the end of quarter 2, or basically the midpoint of the year is when we're looking to end season 1. We'll take a week off and then begin, that's season 3, then we'll begin season 4. So that's kind of the format. A goal that we have for quarter 1 here is to get a website up and off the ground. Obviously, we have our Anchor profile, we have our Instagram page, we have our YouTube channel, but we'd like to have our own website, a hosted website that you guys can go to and get access to all of it. We do have a link tree that kind of serves that function right now, but it's just not the same as a website that you can thoroughly customize. And so we're working on that. So work under construction. That's a goal that we have for quarter 1 to get that up and running. And a goal for quarter 2 is, and we may reach it sooner, but I definitely want to reach it by the end of this season 3, and also within quarter 2, is to get some merch. And kind of along with that, we're working on developing a new logo. Hopefully it'll be our permanent logo. The original one was just very basic, something I just created using my iPhone, to be honest with you. And, it's distinctive, it's memorable, but we really want something that's more professionally done. So we're working on that, and that may and most likely will be included in the merch that we ultimately release. And that obviously will be for sale through our website. That's the goal. By the end of quarter 2, we want to have that up and running. We're also working on a community. I'm not going to release the name of it just now, but I've had it in mind for a while. And we really want to build a nerdy community, because we need each other, right? We're all a little weird. We're all a little bit on the fringes of society. You know what I mean? We don't feel like we quite fit in anywhere. So community is important, finding other nerds, finding nerds that are simpatico with things that you care about, whether it be science fiction, whether it be comic books, whether it be manga or something entirely different. We hope to eventually get a community up and running sometime this year, but I will talk more about that when we are getting closer to release date for said community. So in the meantime, obviously you can reach out and just talk with us. You can follow us on Instagram. You're at Irreverent Nerd, at Irreverent_Nerd, I should say, and then just the Irreverent Nerds on Facebook with our fan page there. So, nerds, thank you for your patience. Thank you for listening to this update and this intro to season 3. Now I'm going to turn you over to myself. And here's the interview with Holodeck 4. Smithers? Yes, sir? Why are the irreverent nerds talking about women? I thought I expressly forbade that on this podcast. Well, sir, I suppose it's because they're trying to be more progressive and inclusive. Oh, I shudder every time I hear those words. Yes, sir, I know. What women are they going to be talking about? Well, sir, I believe it's the women of Star Trek. Star Trek? Is that the new H.G. Wells novel? No, sir, it's a television show. What's television, Smithers? Oh, there's no hope for you, sir. Nerds, I'm here with Holodeck 4, HD for short. As I mentioned earlier in the intro section, we've been connected on Instagram for quite a while. I don't remember exactly when we got connected, but she's been a follower of the podcast and the Instagram for quite some time, and vice versa. She's got some content that she does as well. We're going to talk about that over the course of our discussion here, but the main reason we're here is to talk about the women of Star Trek. But before we jump into that, HD, can I call you HD for short?
Sure, go ahead.
I wanted to ask, how and when did you first start watching Star Trek? Like, how'd you get into Star Trek?
So that's a little complex. It's been a very latent part of my life. Like I grew up in a household where my mom was the Trekkie, and she would watch the original series. I've seen her go through The Next Generation, Voyager, but I never really paid attention to it. I was like, whatever. I'm eating my dinner. I'm going back to my room. So I never really got into it, and wasn't until the pandemic that I started to watch The Next Generation, and I said, "Damn, this shit is good," and I
You
was
said it
like,
just like that, right?
"Yeah," I was hooked instantly, and I don't even remember what episode it was, so I don't know. But yeah, I was just so hooked. And my husband was like, well, I love Star Trek. I'll watch it with you. I'll go through and watch all the series with you. I'm like, really? You would? That's awesome. So yeah, we started with TNG, and then we moved into DS9, and then Enterprise, and then Voyager. And ever since then, it's been like Star Trek every day. Like we watch something every day.
Nice. A Star Trek household.
Yes, definitely. My son loves it. My 5-year-old son, he's just, I'm raising him right, you know?
Hey.
Uh, yeah, he watches it with us. He's got the Enterprise D
Ah, nice.
and
Nice.
action figures. Oh yeah, and we play with those together. So it's a lot of fun. It's a family thing.
Oh yeah, no, I haven't quite introduced my girls to it yet. I have 4 daughters, and like my oldest is just about getting to the age where I'm like comfortable with her watching some episodes, because some of them are a little
Yeah,
more adult.
yeah,
um
just a little.
yeah, some of them. But yeah, we'll get there eventually. And that's how I got introduced to it myself. My dad, I grew up kid of the 80s, so I grew up watching TNG with my dad. So that was my first introduction. So like you, I started with TNG. Have you ever made your way back around to the original series in the last 2 years, or?
I have not.
Ah,
I'm going to be honest. I'm not into it. I just never could pick it up. So no, the answer is no.
well, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, there's so many different styles of Trek, and with the exception of maybe the first season of TNG, which is actually very similar in kind of in an 80s kind of way to the original series. Most of the rest of Star Trek is quite a bit different.
Yeah.
um, So you said you don't remember the first episode that you watched, but that it was TNG of some type.
Yes, it was
Um,
definitely TNG.
do you remember which character featured more in that episode? I mean, obviously Picard and Data are in a lot of them as the main, but like,
It was
do you have a
actually
few?
Geordi. It was Geordi.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
nice. Did you get Reading Rainbow vibes? Like, did you watch that growing up?
totally.
Oh
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
you're like, oh,
Public school vibes. Watching the big TV rolls out. Yeah.
oh yeah.
Mm,
Did you really want to say like, you don't have to take my word for it?
yeah.
No.
It was the visors too, man. It's just the visors are cool.
Yeah,
Like I need a pair of those.
I heard that that gave him a headache though, because it was like it
Really?
had to be on. I guess they just had those two little like look like a sequin or whatever whenever he takes it off.
Yeah.
But I guess it just stayed on with pressure, so that probably gave him like headaches because that's like right on your temple.
That's right. Didn't he try to get them to let him take that off at some point?
Well, he did eventually, like in the movies, they
Yeah.
finally he finally got eye surgery and was able to see without his visor. So I'm sure he was glad to not have to wear that anymore.
I know. That would give me such a migraine.
Oh man, yeah. From what I heard, yeah, that I don't know full migraine, but like definitely some headaches for him.
Yeah, tension headache for sure.
So you've already talked a little bit about like what your initial impressions were. You fell in love with it. You're like, I need more of this. Um, was there any of this series where you just started getting into? You're like, this is not as good, or this is very different, or like, what were your general impressions of like as you went from series to series? Obviously, '90s Trek. There's kind of a similar vibe with a lot of it, but did was there one you were like, whoa, this is different? I don't know, not sure about this one. Like, how about
Um,
Enterprise? Did you hit that with Enterprise a bit, or?
I love Enterprise. Oh my gosh, no. Um, I mean, the series definitely have their own unique flavors. TNG is like TNG is TNG, but when you get into DS9, it's like it's dark. It's the darker one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and at first, I was like, I'm not sure about this. It's way too different. But as I went on with it, I was like, no, this is really good. This is good stuff. And honestly, like TNG is my favorite series, but DS9 is pretty darn close to actually being my favorite, like my number one, because it's just so good. Like it
Mm-hmm.
like went into like depth with the Ferengis. Like you actually got to see more about their culture, their way of life. They developed the characters really well. Like with Quark. I mean, first he
Mm-hmm.
starts off fairly unlikable, but as it goes on, he's just like he's sweet. I think he's sweet. And so that's what that did for me. And it was just very different from TNG. But I appreciate that. I like that. And then we got into Enterprise, and it was very different. Um, I I'm not happy with the ending of that one. I don't think anybody is.
I haven't heard too many people that are. Yeah, I don't think the runners. I don't think they planned to end it, and it kind of just got ended for them, from what I've heard. But
Yeah, it was
yeah, that
very
always sucks.
unfortunate. Very unfortunate because it had such a good storyline going for it, and it left so many loose ends. And it's just yeah, just very unfortunate. But as far as the acting, the stories, and all that goes, I loved it. I even love the theme song.
Yeah,
It's
I
a
didn't think it
long
was that
road.
bad.
You know, I love it. And then so yeah, then we moved into Voyager, and that one. TOS aside, the original series aside, Voyager's probably one of my least favorites.
Hmm.
Discovery, I don't like it all, but um, Voyager's kind of right there, hanging off the
Hmm.
edge. There's just something about it. I
Didn't
just,
didn't quite connect with you.
I just didn't connect with it. No, and I love that Janeway was the first female captain. That's amazing, and I love a strong female character, but it just never really clicked with me. So it's
Well,
not
that's all
really,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, I think those were the two. I didn't watch a lot of DS9 in the 90s, like when it was actually coming out. I do
Right.
remember seeing advertisements for it and stuff, but Voyager was one that I watched because it was, I think for about, was it 6 years? The two were on together at the same time. Like,
Yeah.
and I think it was 6 years. Something like, well, no, there was
There
like a
was some
four or
overlap.
5 year overlap there, I think,
Yeah.
between the two. And yeah, it took me a while to find my way to DS9, and I think it was just a few years ago I finally got into it. I got started. I started at the beginning more or less, and then I gradually got hooked, especially when you start introducing the Dominion storyline, and then it just went from there. So it's like,
Yeah.
but yeah, it took me a while to find my way around to it, because yeah, it is with the serialized storytelling. It's in a different tone. It's very
Mhm.
different from a lot of what TNG had to offer.
Yeah.
So
Had a lot of dark, religious undertones to it.
yeah, which Trek definitely doesn't stay away from that, but they don't do it every episode.
Right.
So yeah, definitely a lot more with that. Which Ronald D. Moore, who was one of the main runners of the show, he kind of continued that on with Battlestar Galactica. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it also has a lot of religious overtones. But um,
Yes.
so speaking of DS9, I know you and I talked about discussing a specific episode kind of as a launching board for our main topic, which is the women of Star Trek. And you mentioned that your favorite episode featuring a female protagonist was Duet from DS9. You want to tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about why that is and why you like Kira?
Yeah. Interestingly, I really liked that episode. And when I found out that Nana Visitor and Armin Shimmerman loved it so much, it's like one of their favorites. That just made it even better for me. But the acting in it was great. The script, it really, it hit, it just hits you in the feels because it shows you everything that Kira went through in the war and like where she's at now. And she has to kind of like overcome her prejudice towards the Cardassians. It's a lot of inner work going on in her. And she's having to see like, well, not all Cardassians are bad. We don't have to kill them all. So
Mm.
it just it was very it showed her strength of character, I think, and her growth since the war. So that's why I like that one so much.
Yeah, no, I know I'd watched it before, but just rewatched it the other day in preparation for this, and yeah, I'd forgotten. It had been so long since I'd seen it. I'd forgotten that particular episode. And I was like, this is really good. And
Yeah.
and like you said, the acting is excellent, and just her arc within the course of the episode itself, where she ends up once it's the full reveal happens, and spoiler warning, you find out that the guy is actually Maritza, that it's not Gold or Heel, the butcher, and that he actually was disturbed by the violence, just to see her show him compassion at the end of the episode like that.
Yeah.
Like you said, it gives you the feels. It's like, yeah, it's just powerful.
Yeah, and it really set the tone for all the other, the rest of the series. So that's the way I see it. But yeah, it was just very, um, it just made me really like Kira a lot, and it just got better from there on out.
Now, was that now when I asked you, I think, and when we were talking back and forth preparing for the episode, you jokingly said that Kai Wen was your favorite female character, and then you said no, actually, it's Kira.
Mhm.
But since they both appear in this episode, I thought it'd be interesting to compare and contrast them a bit. Like, what don't you like about Kai Wen, and might she be your least favorite female character or one of them? And like, how would you compare her to Kira?
Um, she's definitely spineless compared to Kira.
Mm,
Kira is, she's very like strong, confident, know what I want, know, just she's just confident. And Kai Wen is anything but. She's just weak, spineless, just ignorant. Like
mm,
her religious, all the religious stuff. It's just she's so enveloped in that she can't see anything else.
mm.
It really turns out it ends up being her downfall. So yeah.
Yeah. No, it's interesting that there was a note there where I think it was Cisco was talking with Kira about Kai Wen,
Mhm.
and Kira admits that she had in the past had looked up to Kai. It's just like I think she said something along the lines of she envied her devotion because Kira had, now she realizes by the end of the episode, falsely assumed that it was sincere, that it was like a sincere devotion to the prophet, so to speak, where we realize Kai Wen's more about power, I guess, as the series goes
Yes,
on.
more about power,
But
power hungry.
getting it through manipulation and conniving and
Mm.
all the things that Kira is not. Like Kira's like in your face. If she doesn't like you, right, she's gonna tell you.
She's just straightforward. She's
Yeah.
not going to beat around the bushes or anything like that. And I love that in a person. I mean, I love that
Mm.
in anybody. So
Oh, me
yeah,
too. Yeah, I prefer straightforward. I don't want that passive aggressive worry that someone's gonna stab me in the back at some point. No,
exactly. Yes. Say what you mean what you say.
indeed. Um, so are there? What would you say are the qualities in Kira that you admire the most? Like that you did say, I didn't understand correctly, that she's your favorite, or if you had to pick one,
Yes. Yeah,
that she
she's
would
like
be
my
your
number
favorite.
one. Yeah, it's because she is so strong and confident after everything she's been through, and she can still hold her head high,
Mhm.
and still learn a lesson. Like she can still be soft. She can still learn, and she can change, and she can be better. She's always open to growth, and I admire that about the character.
Mhm. What did you think of? I know it happened later in the series, but the romance with her and Odo and the arc there. Like, how'd you feel about that?
That broke my heart. Oh, that
uh,
broke my heart because Odo wanted her so bad, and
mm,
he loved her. He loved her, and when it finally clicked for her, and she realized that she loved him too, like, oh, and I was like, I'm so glad they're together, but at the end they get pulled apart, and it
mm.
just, oh, it broke my heart.
Yeah, that was rough. That was rough because it's like
Yeah,
it builds up for so long and then just like
yeah.
which I mean is like real life. That happens in real life, but it's like
But it
um
was another opportunity to show that, like, she's growing. She is able to let go. She let
mm,
go of someone she loved, so that he could go, I guess, be better, help his own people. It's very selfless of her
mm,
to do that when she loved him, and probably didn't really want to let him go either.
mm. If memory serves me, doesn't he return to the home planet, like to the, I guess, the founders, for lack of a better term, or like,
Yes, yeah.
yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
I think he went back there to try to convince them that not all solids are bad and
Mm-hmm.
that good stuff.
So he can add his memories and his experiences
Yes.
back into I want to call it the collective, but
Collective.
I know they had a different name for it.
No, no, no.
It's not the same thing, but similar idea, just more fluid concept,
Yeah.
pun intended. Um, so I guess the follow up question, and we talked about a little bit, but like, would you say Kaiwan is your least favorite, or do you have someone else that you despise more, or had you even thought about it?
I thought about it, but I, Ro from TNG is kind of down there because she was very wishy washy. I felt
Mm,
she didn't know if she should, like, go with her people or be in Starfleet. It's like she was very conflicted. Um, and I'm happy she made up her mind in the end, but it was like, why'd you take so long? Um, but no, she's not quite as annoying as Kylin. That whole my child thing, and
oh
just
man,
the
gives you
that
like
was
those
so contrived.
this clingy mother vibe. Yeah, it's like, or like, oh yeah,
Like, I
like,
I know that you are angry at me, but I forgive you.
oh, like
Oh,
all
really?
that narcissistic abuse, all the whole nine
Yes.
yards.
Like gaslighting. Gosh.
Ugh, yeah, that makes my skin crawl almost more than anything else. Like it's up there. Yeah.
Yeah. They
Uh,
really they knew what they were doing when they wrote that character.
oh yeah, and the actress, she nails it. Like she
Oh,
makes
she is
she
so
makes
good.
you hate her.
Yeah. Oh, she was so good. Rest in peace. Yeah.
Oh, she's, I
She just
guess
passed.
she did.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
I guess it's
Nurse
been,
Ratchet. It's been a few months.
oh, was she in the original series? Like, I know
Um,
sometimes they had carryover actors, like some who appeared in the original series and
no,
then did
no,
another.
she, no, she just played like other roles, and I know one was like
Uh,
Nurse Ratchet,
oh,
and
okay.
I've
Okay.
never
Some
seen the
other
movie.
series.
She's like some terrible nurse. Yeah, it was another movie.
Uh, so she was another a bad
Yeah,
character or a bad person.
she had a lot of big roles in her lifetime, and she really made that one her own. She did an awesome job. Yeah,
That's got to be something you love as an actor to get basically 7 years to chew on that and develop a character. It's got to be pretty cool. Like, um, I think if I ever got into that, I would definitely want to do a TV series at some point because yeah, you really get to explore the nuances of a character over the course of that long. So
right,
whether they be evil nuances or not evil.
right. Like kind of like Gold Dukat.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, he
he,
gets more complex as
oh yeah,
the series goes on.
yeah,
Ends up
very
with although tricking her, but ends up with kind of
the same
like,
fate.
yeah.
Deserved it.
Um. So, do you think so we can't go back a full 60 years because you said you hadn't seen the original series. Have you read or heard much about it, like just in general, or maybe we ask more what you know, like I guess since you've started watching TNG, um, and since you watched more recently, this might be easier to answer for you. Did you notice, like chronologically as the series went along, as we got closer and closer to modern times, have you noticed an evolution in how women were portrayed just within the series themselves? Uh, like a progression, or were there times where it seemed like it regressed? I know you have a lot of different writers contributing over those years, so like some female, some not. Um, but how did you feel about that? Did you feel like things improved over time with Star Trek and the way they portrayed?
Well, I mean, things definitely improved since the original series. I mean, even though Gene Roddenberry was very progressive and the writing was very progressive, they still had a ways to go. And TNG, it started with TNG. It started, improving. Um, and I just feel like ever since then, I haven't really noticed where it's like since then gotten any worse or any better or any different. I feel like it's always been like a level playing field between the men and the women. Like the women can do anything. They can be a captain. They can be an admiral. It's always been like that, and I think it will always be like that. And that's part of why I like Star Trek. And that's why a lot of people do.
Yeah, I think um even going back to in the original series, I think yeah, it is unfortunate that took a little bit of a step backwards, but that might have been, if memory serves me, due in part to studio pressure and their concerns about being too controversial. But Nurse Chapel in the original series, who was, I don't know if she was at that time, but eventually became Gene Roddenberry's wife. Like she was originally supposed to, I think in the very first pilot, the Cage was the first officer there on the bridge, and kind of went backwards a little bit in terms of rank.
Yeah,
But
that did.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, like they got off to a good start, and then, but yeah, sometimes I'm sure Gene wasn't allowed to go as far as he wanted to in some cases, like, but even like having a black woman on the bridge, like in a very important, and even just on TV, like in a very important role on TV, like that's pretty
Oh,
big.
absolutely. Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think,
I can't help wondering if the slip backwards with Majel Barrett, like if that had something to do with like their personal lives, like maybe he was still married at the time and he didn't want to
mm,
advance this woman. I don't know.
who
Um,
knows? I know he was
we'll never
a
know.
bit of a ladies' man, from what I've heard.
Yeah, yeah.
So no one's perfect, but
We all make
yeah, that
mistakes.
that is one of his traits that I've heard about. And I think his son has confirmed that as well. It's like, yeah, he was a little bit that way.
Ah,
You do kind of see that in the original series, like just the way the women are dressed a lot of times, and
mhm.
ironically, that got more conservative, like when you get to TNG or DS9, except for the TNG episode Justice. Not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with, you know, I don't personally think there's anything wrong with nudity or things like that as long as it's done tastefully. But yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't always tasteful in some of the early series. Let's see. Here's something that came to my mind. Two of the episodes that I watched in preparation. One was the host, which is a TNG episode, and the other being Duet that you recommended. In both of those, I saw examples of female friendships. You have like Troy and Crusher in the host. They have quite a few conversations in the course of that episode. And then obviously Dax and Kira have a few in Duet. Like, do you feel like female friendship was portrayed well? Did you resonate with that in the series? Like, was there one series that maybe did a better job than others? Like,
Um, I, I love it. I feel like they did a great job with both, like Deanna, Dr. Crusher, Jadzia and Kira. I feel like those were good female relationships. I really enjoyed. I think this was on the host where Deanna was sitting in the salon, and then Beverly comes in. They're getting their nails
mm-hmm.
done. I love that girl talk back and forth. That's so much fun. I wish they'd done a little more of that, but I enjoyed it. I like that. I like that component. I hope I actually hope they do it more, like with Strange New Worlds and whatever else they come up with. But I would like to see more of that. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's true. I know with Discovery, like I'm just thinking of the female friendships in there. They're all
I can't really. I mean, I've seen
they're
like the
not
first
they're not
season.
like your normal everyday. It's like you have
Yeah,
Burnham and what's the darn it? I can think of the actress's name, Michelle Yao, but who she plays the woman who
yeah,
was like
yeah.
the empress, and then she crosses over, and their relationship is it's definitely not your typical female friendship, if you would even
They're not going to go get a cup
call it
of
that.
coffee or anything.
No,
Yeah,
not going to talk about that guy they just went on a date with, or
boys.
or that girl they just went on a date with, whatever the case might be. Um, yeah, I guess Tilly might be the closest
Mm.
character we have to that in Discovery. But yeah, I feel like Kira and Dax, like given the serialized way that they told the story, I feel like that probably got to develop the most of the female friendships that were in TNG. I mean, you had that with Crusher and Troy, but not quite as much. I feel like Kira and Dax were a more central part of so many of the plots in the DS9 episode. So I feel like it seems like that got to get fleshed out more.
Yeah, and
Um,
they were able to give each other a bit of advice. When they really need it. It was very interesting to watch that play out.
so, are there any ways that you feel like they could improve things going forward? Like, is there anything you think that is still missing in that regard? Like, I know we've had some pretty important social movements recently, like Me Too and things like that. I was trying to think if Star Trek had touched on some of those issues, um, but like maybe something along those lines, or do you feel there's some things they could do better in the future?
Hmm. Um, the only thing I really want them to improve is to just give us more. Like
Yeah,
I want more,
more
more
Star Trek.
than
They are
yeah,
doing
like
a pretty
more
good job of that
series.
right now. They got like what, four going on at once right now? Is it four?
Are there really?
Four?
Well, I mean, is that counting like the cartoons though?
Yeah, that is counting like Prodigy and was it Lower Decks? I haven't seen those yet. I
You
want to I want to
haven't?
I want to
Okay.
catch them.
Yeah, I haven't seen Prodigy. It seems a little too young for me. I could be wrong. Um, I have a lot of friends that watch it and they love it, but it just seems a little too young. And then like the lower decks, I've tried to get into that, but it's just like it walks a fine line. It's trying to be like Star Trek, but it's also trying to be Rick and Morty. And I don't know. I'd rather watch Rick and Morty, but yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
don't
probably
know.
still get Star Trek references, right?
Yeah, yeah, probably.
Probably.
Yeah. Um, but I don't really think anything needs to improve. I mean, they've always touched on important social topics, and
Hmm.
they've always done it so well, like in such a subtle way, that was not aggressive or offensive. And that really, honestly, that changed my life. That honestly
Mm.
just changed me. It changed the way I think, the way I see the world. Um, I feel like I'm more compassionate, more open-minded because of Star Trek, because of all of the ideals and the lessons that they instill with each episode.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I really like that. And yeah, at this point, my only complaint is you're not giving me enough. I want more.
Yeah, I think that's true for many diehard fans, and I know I'm looking forward to season 3 of Picard coming up. I don't know if you've caught
Oh
up with the
gosh.
first 2 seasons, but I'm definitely looking forward to that. And
Yes,
Doctor Crusher
yes.
and Doctor Crusher's coming back from what I've heard, and hopefully,
Everybody.
I'm hoping she'll be a somewhat prominent point, and I'm hoping they'll explore some of her relationship with Jean-Luc in that.
I want her back with Picard. I
Yeah,
want them together. And I know a lot of ladies are out there hoping for this. I would
that
love that.
that new relationship with Yaris. So
Yeah.
am I saying that right?
It
I was
the
like,
Romulan.
yeah, it's just like
And
I was
yeah,
like, I mean, part of it's the actress is a lot younger
the
than
age gap. Yeah.
yeah, although in real life, Patrick Stewart is married to a woman who I think is 30 years his junior,
Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
does mirror his real life in that sense. But yeah,
Right.
it just didn't feel right. I was like, no,
No,
Picard
and
should
her
be with
husband had
Crusher.
just been killed. Or at least I think that was her husband that got killed.
Yeah, or at least her. I know. I can't remember if they got married. I actually just read the prequel comic, which does explore more of their relationship. I know they were lovers at least. I'm not sure if they
Yeah.
officially got married, but
Yeah.
yeah. So that
It just seemed a little
maybe a little
too
forced.
fast, too soon, forced. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. But yeah, that would just make my life if they would just put those two together. And I'm really excited for season three. The first two seasons were kind of they left a lot to be desired. I will say that. Um, I'm glad to get it. I'm not
oh yeah,
ungrateful. You know,
yeah.
I love that
It's
we're getting Picard. Period. But
mm-hmm,
yeah,
mm-hmm,
season three. I'm hanging my hopes on that one.
mm.
I'm excited. I'm ready.
It was. It did take me a bit to get used to. It's so different tonally than which, from what I understand, Patrick Stewart might not have done it had it been kind of the same tone as TNG. He wanted to do something different. He wanted to move the story forward. But yeah, it felt a little off to me because it's just very different um, than what I was used to with TNG. And part of that too is just Patrick Stewart is so much older and he doesn't have that commanding voice anymore. It's just he,
Right.
he
Kind
sounds
of
old. He sounds
frail.
old now.
Yeah, it's more frail and fragile. And yeah, there was a lot of like in season one and two, there's a lot of plot holes, like a lot of stories that just kind of went nowhere. Like with Narek, what happened to him? What was the point? You know, stuff like that.
Yeah,
Um, I'm glad that's out of the way now, though. So we'll just have to wait and see.
yeah. No, I'm looking forward to it. Just a couple more weeks here. I
Yeah.
think 23rd. 23rd as it
16th
starts.
of
The
February.
16th. Okay, six. Oh,
Yeah.
February. Well, never mind.
Yeah,
Another
it's
month.
about a month.
Darn.
No,
Well,
we got ways to go. Sorry.
not too bad though. That's not too bad. Well, we got about 7 minutes left in our in our session. My listeners by now are used to me using the free version of Zoom when I do video episodes. So I've got 40-minute limits. But before we go, I wanted to ask: had you had a chance to think about what your top five is? And it doesn't have to be ranked necessarily, but just like your top five favorite. I know it's probably got to be hard to pick. Um,
It really was hard to pick
yeah.
because there are a lot of strong females in Trek, and I had to write it down.
No, I hear you.
So, like, I've got Kira, then Jadzia, then Moogie, and then Dr. Crusher,
Nice.
and then Paul. Yeah.
Okay. What was the
People are
fourth
going
one?
to be like, Moogie?
Moogie.
What?
Yeah, Moogie's hilarious.
She is, and she really paved the way for Ferengi women to wear clothes. to do business, to
Mhm.
do government, and that's really big. That's a really big deal for Ferengi women. So yay,
I,
Moogie.
I just love how Rom says it. Moogie. He's like, every time.
Moogie.
It's hilarious. He's this brilliant engineer, but when he sees his Moogie, it's just like
That's
Moogie.
right. Yeah,
It's
I love
hilarious.
that.
What was the fourth one? I missed it.
The fourth one was Dr. Crusher.
Dr. Crusher. Okay.
Yeah, Beverly.
Okay.
Blazing Bev. I call her Blazing
Yeah.
Bev now
Blazing
because of
Bev.
the
Oh yeah,
kids.
with the flaming red hair.
Yeah. And then the last one was T'Pol.
To Paul. Okay.
I
Nice.
love her. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I had a hard time trying to figure mine out.
Really?
Yeah, and ranking is tough. Like,
It
which, like I
is.
said, it's like I think my number one is Guinan. I really love Guinan.
Oh,
I
that's a good
love
one.
I love her on TNG. I know she's not there every episode, but when she is, she
Right.
just makes such a
Very meaningful
difference.
impact.
Yeah, and it's obviously Whoopi Goldberg, excellent actress, and particularly her dynamic with Picard,
Right.
which is one of the reasons why, for me, like my favorite TNG film is Generations, because she features heavily in that. I know a lot of TNG fans don't like Generations, which I still don't understand to this day. I'm like, why not? It's basically like an extended episode with a much higher production level, because they made it right after season 7 finished, and
Yeah.
it just felt so much like TNG to me. But for some reason, people are like, that's like, no, that's one of my favorites, and part of that is because Guinan is in it quite a bit, and you get to find a little bit more about her people too. Um, so I think Guinan would be probably my number one, and after that, it's like a crapshoot. I was like, dang, because in rewatching some of the episodes, I'm like, oh no, now I really like. I'm reminded how much I like this character, because Kira is really awesome. So I love Kira and how her character grows, and Dax obviously, and love that her and Worf eventually get together. That
Yeah.
that was a pretty fun pairing, and obviously I love Troy and Crusher. So I guess if I had to pick five, would probably be those five. Like if I was forced at gunpoint, it'd probably those five be Guinan, and these are with the exception maybe of Guinan, the other four are probably like what a lot of people would pick. Um,
Oh yeah, absolutely. I
and
know Tazzy is going to be on everybody's list.
yeah, and
She's
here,
beautiful.
oh man, but yeah, but she's a strong female character as
Right.
well. She's intelligent, she's funny, so she's very well rounded. But yeah, definitely beautiful. As is Nana Visitor. But and
She had a very like fun and quirky side to her too. She had all these
yeah,
different facets to her character, and I love seeing that.
yeah, and her relationship with Cisco, given that she's a Trill and is 300 years old, and can
Mhm.
talk about past relationships, and including apparently a fling with Dr. McCoy, right? From
Yeah.
she's like, he had good hands.
Did you
Um,
ever detect like maybe Cisco might have at one time or at one point had a thing for Jadzia?
hmm,
Did you ever get that? Because there was this one episode
hmm,
where Botswana, can't say her,
Luxana.
yeah, where she comes on board and people are just going nuts. Like she has some disease and it makes them just kind of like lust after each other.
Hmm,
It makes kind of like their underlying feelings come out and they start being attracted to one another. And Cisco was attracted to Jadzia. So
hmm.
I
Interesting.
kind of got that vibe. I don't know.
Could be.
Very
It'd be
interesting.
it'd be a little weird. It'd be similar, honestly, to the episode of The Host, where it's like ghosts. I mean, granted, that's like three bodies within what 3 days. So that
Goes from
was
a man to a woman.
yeah,
Dr. Crusher's
yeah,
like,
yeah. Well, man to Will Riker, someone she already knows, to then to a woman. It's like
awkward.
too much change at once.
Yeah,
Um,
awkward.
but yeah,
I
that
love
would
Riker
be
too.
interesting. Riker maneuver. Yeah,
Oh gosh.
yeah. I should have tried it coming in the episode, just like do that. No,
Oh, you're gonna have to do that next
don't
time.
want to hurt myself though. I'm a little too old for his. Of course, I guess I'm about his age, the age he was when he was in the series. So
How old are you?
I guess I'm not. 39. 39.
I'm 40, 1 year older
Oh,
than
okay.
you. Yeah, I would definitely pull something trying to do that. So I'm not, I don't blame you.
Yeah, I think he was, memory serves me, 35 when the series started. So
Hmm.
yeah, so right around when it was getting good, season 3, 4, and he was our age. So it's like,
Yeah,
it's weird looking back on that now. It's like, damn, I was a little kid when this came out, and now I'm the age of the character.
right?
Uh,
Yeah.
anyway, Zoom is about to cut me off here.
Oh,
So
okay.
I just want to say thank you so much, HD, for
Thank
coming
you.
on Holodeck
Thank
4.
you for having
And
me.
guys, check her out on Instagram and Twitter. I think is the same handle on both at Holodeck 4.
It's Holodeck FOUR on Twitter and on TikTok, but
Okay.
on Instagram it's just four, like
At Holodeck and then
four.
the
Yeah,
numeral 4.
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and obviously you guys have seen Nerds. If you get on our Instagram as well, you'll see tags and stuff with her in it. So check out her stuff. She's got some hilarious memes that she brings up. So, and if you love Star Trek and you love funny memes, check out her stuff. So thanks again. And
Yeah.
yeah, had fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Live long and prosper. I can't do the hand thing,
Oh
but
yeah, I can do
oh, there
both.
you go. You do it for both of us.
Yeah,
Thanks.
there we go. Live
Okay.
long and prosper.
Hi, this is Lars from the Treknicity Podcast and the Red Shirt Geeks, and these are my top 5 women in Star Trek. Coming in at number 5, Majel Barrett Roddenberry, often referred to as the First Lady of Star Trek. Number 4, Kate Mulgrew as Captain Catherine Janeway. Number 3, Grace Lee Whitney as Yeoman and later Commander Rand. Number 2, Nichelle Nichols as Uhura. And number 1, and most people wouldn't think of this one, but the incredible Lucille Ball Arnaz, who is often referred to as the godmother of Star Trek, as she personally greenlit the funding for the original pilot. Thanks very much. We hope to see you soon, and remember to rock out with your Spock out.
Thank you so much for joining us for the first episode of Season 3 of the Irreverent Nerds podcast. And a special thank you to at Holodeck4 and at Photographer, i.e. Lars DeSenza, for joining us and chiming in on today's topic. So next week, we are going to be joined by the one and only Dan Johnson, and we are going to be talking about James Gunn and the DCEU. WTF is going on, Mr. Gunn? What is going on? We're going to be talking about that next week, so don't miss that. That releases January 11th. So, follow us, like us, subscribe, comment, send us a message. We're on Instagram at irreverent_nerd. We are on Facebook, simply The Irreverent Nerds. We are on YouTube, The Irreverent Nerds. And leave us a voice message. Go to anchor.fm/irreverent nerd. You can also support us there for 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99 a month. We would greatly appreciate it. Until next time, nerds, live long and prosper. Avengers Assemble!